Okay, so we are going to talk about punctuation and why it matters to designers. A lot of this information comes from the book, so we'll go kind of quickly through it, but I want to show you some examples of some of the things that are discussed in the book and different things like that. So punctuation matters to designers because punctuation is critical for communicating a message. Here we see just a little kind of love letter from Jane to her dear John, and the way that it's punctuated uh, makes a very clear message. Obviously, Jane is fawning for John and wants to be with him. When the punctuation is changed, even though the words are all the same, the message becomes very, very different. So this is kind of just a fun example just to show that punctuation really does make a difference. In this example, obviously Jane is very dissatisfied with John and has some things to say about it. One of the things that really does matter to designers and to typesetters are different marks like the quotation marks. Um, we use quotation marks, we use single quotation marks and double quotation marks. We use apostrophes, which are different than single quotation marks. We use ditto marks, we use prime marks, and we need to know how to use each one of these. Um, Now, in this example, we have a prime mark. In our reading, I should point out that Robin does make a distinction between ditto marks and prime marks. According to our reading, when a mark is straight up and down like this, it would be considered a ditto mark. When it's slanted, which I'll show you in just a bit, it would be considered a prime mark. So I'm going to be providing kind of a cheat sheet for these punctuation marks for how to set them and different things like that. With quotation marks, we certainly don't want to use ditto marks or prime marks when we really do want to use quotation marks. Here we have just the same marks, straight up and down lines, for double quotation marks, single quotation marks, and for prime marks. Here we're using typographer's quotes or curly quotes or smart quotes, if you remember at the beginning of the semester when we talked about these. We're using a single open quote here, and then we're using the slanted prime marks to show inches and feet. And again, here we see that the ditto marks are the straight ones and the prime marks are the slanted ones. Um, this is something that comes up quite often. A lot of times we'll see people using single open quotation marks in place of an apostrophe. And you see some examples here. We have a single open quote here. We have just a ditto mark, basically. And then here we have our single open quotation mark. This does come up a lot, like I had mentioned. In fact, when I was doing my master's program, I was taking an editing class, and in our textbook that we used, an editing textbook, it's talking about the uses of the apostrophe. So it says we also use apostrophes to indicate that something has been omitted from a word or number. I love rock and roll, and Robin uses the same example in the reading that you did. And we have an open, or I'm sorry, we have an apostrophe instead of an open quotation mark here. And then we have another apostrophe. Notice that they're both facing left. What's crazy about this is in the explanation right below the example, they use a single open quotation mark in front of the N instead of an apostrophe. So one of our assignments in the editing class was just to keep our eye out and look for different problems in the world around us, different editing mistakes. And unfortunately, this is one in our book, in the chapter and in the section that talks about the uses of an apostrophe. Also, if you graduated in 2008 from BYU, you got this t-shirt, and unfortunately uses a single open quotation mark. So you do the best you can, I guess. We want to make sure that we don't fall into that trap. Another thing that it talked about was hanging punctuation. Hanging punctuation is really a nice thing because what it does is makes the punctuation mark, as you can see in these examples, hang outside of the text, basically, so that your text aligns nicely and the punctuation marks stick out just a little bit. You may think, oh, that would look weird, but really, when you see text that's set with hanging punctuation, it gives a much more aligned appearance than text that insists on having the punctuation marks actually inside the text area. So I'll show you how to do that also. Also talks about shifting baselines. When this doesn't come in handy all the time, especially in long blocks of text, body text, you probably won't be shifting too many baselines. But if you're designing something like a billboard and it has a big giant email address like you see here, you'll want to pay attention to this kind of thing. In this first example, they're using a typeface that does not, well, they're using a typeface where the @ symbol aligns at the baseline with all the other letters. If you look at this, this looks like the @ symbol is hanging a little bit too high, right? We're used to seeing an @ symbol have somewhat of a descender. The @ symbol a lot of times will go a little bit below the baseline. So what this designer did was just shift the baseline of that @ symbol just a little bit there. And you can see just blown up examples of how that might look. Again, when you're doing display text, larger bits of text, you want to pay attention to this kind of thing. We're also going to look at how to create dingbats as bullets. So I've written out the instructions there for you so that you can have those. You can download this slide deck from Learning Suite, but I want to give you some examples here. This is just kind of a little punctuation cheat sheet that I created, and I will give this to you. I'll put it on Learning Suite. We're looking here at an apostrophe. So when you want to type something out, you don't want to use a single open quotation mark. You can hold down Shift, Option, and then the close bracket to create an apostrophe. I've also found it easy. Let's see, I'll zoom in here. When I want to type something like rock and roll, to just start typing the rock, and then if I hit the apostrophe key, it will automatically type a single open quotation mark, which I do not want. But what I've noticed, or something that I think is easier, is if I just type any letter and then the apostrophe key, I can go back and just delete that letter, and that will maintain that apostrophe rather than a single open quotation mark. So you can do it either way. Shift, Option, close bracket is the keystroke that will create an apostrophe every time for you. To create a ditto mark, you can just turn off the typographer's quotes. We saw how to do that in Word when we did our in-class assignment, but in InDesign, all you have to do is just go up to the Preferences, so the InDesign menu, Preferences, and then select Type. And then you want to just unselect Use Typographer's Quotes if you are interested in using just ditto marks there. Once you have done that, then you just want to run a find and replace through the whole document, looking for any instance of a single open quotation mark or a single closed quotation mark, and then just replace it with a single open or a single closed quotation mark. So find and replace step is exactly like we did in our in our document cleanup, but fortunately in InDesign it's much easier to turn those typographer's quotes on and off. The next one here is our prime mark, and this is actually the symbol font. Now at my work, we run into this a lot. We need to use the foot symbol for different measurements, and what we've decided to do is just use the font called symbol for every time we have one of these marks. So it doesn't matter what font we're using for the document. Anytime we need a single prime mark or a double prime mark, we use the font symbol. And you can see here that when I highlight it, it is that font called symbol. If I open up the glyphs panel here in the symbol font, and symbol is included with all of your creative suites, you can see the single mark there and then the double mark there. So that's how we have done it. Whoops. And then we also have our double prime mark there. For hanging punctuation, you can see this example. We have our quotation marks that actually hang outside of our text frame there. You can see if I select the text frame that this quotation mark hangs out just a little bit. Now your reading gave you some different ideas on how to do that. The easiest way to do it is to have your cursor blinking within the paragraph. You want to open the story window, and that is under type and story. And it opens over here for me, and then you want to just select the optical margin alignment. If I unselect it, notice now that those quotation marks are within my text frame. If I select it again, they go outside. Now you can play with the setting here for the optical margin alignment, but I have found that sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, or sometimes it doesn't behave in exactly the way that I want it to. Now that actually helped quite a bit. It pushed those the whole double quotation mark outside of the text frame, which I prefer. Just upping the value in my story pane there. If that doesn't work, another trick, and this seems a little bit tedious, but it works, is to insert a breaking space. Let's see, I'm going to turn off the optical margin alignment. A non-breaking space in front of the quotation mark, and then you can go ahead and kern that quotation mark all the way outside of the text frame. Robin Williams mentions this in your book. I'll demonstrate it here, and I'll turn on my hidden characters so that you can see what I'm doing. I have my cursor blinking right in front of my double quotation mark. I'll go up to the type menu, and I will select white space and then non-breaking space. And that puts in a non-breaking space there. Now if I put my, let's see, whoops, if I highlight that non-breaking space under my kerning area, which I have here, I can select 0, and then I believe if I start, oops, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I want to have my cursor just right between my non-breaking space and my quotation mark, just blinking there. I can just, wow, that is a lot of clicks. I can just keep clicking until that double quotation mark extends where I want it to. So it's starting to get kind of cut off there. Maybe we'll pull that in a little bit, and then we'll call that good. So anyway, that's a workaround that you can use if you're finding that this optical margin alignment in the story section isn't really doing a whole lot for you. All right. Notice too that when I have my optical margin alignment showing, that my hyphens and different things like that at the end of the lines, I believe I have an example here. Yeah, right here. My hyphens at the end of the lines are also extending beyond where my letters are. That hyphen sticks out just a little bit farther than that T or that R. If I want to double check that, I can pull a guide out and just align it with my letter there. And I can see that that hyphen is sticking out. So it's really a beautiful thing. If you're doing setting body text, it's a very easy thing to turn on, just that optical margin alignment again under your story panel, and it's super easy to use, so it's definitely worth it. And in this cheat sheet I have type, story, optical margin alignment, so that's easy for you to see. Excuse me. Okay, the last thing that I wanted to demonstrate that talked about, or it's not the last thing, second to last thing that it talked about in the book is this baseline shift. I have my email address set in a couple of different fonts. So here's Minion Pro, here is Futura, here is Chaparral Pro, and here is Franklin Gothic. Now notice that some of these typefaces have a baseline shift, or I'm sorry, some of them require a baseline shift, and some of them don't. Just depends on the typeface you use, and that's an important thing to consider always, and we've talked about that a lot. With Minion Pro, that @ sign extends well below the baseline there, so it's probably not really necessary to shift the baseline. Same thing with Futura, and same thing with Chaparral Pro really. With Franklin Gothic, though, that @ symbol sits right on the baseline there. So what I would want to do, if I'm, again, setting my email address in large display text, I would just want to highlight that @ sign, and then I want to come up to the baseline shift field here, and it looks like this. I want to bump that down, so I'll just hit the down key a couple of times until it is about where I want it. And I'm just eyeballing this really to see what looks good. That looks a lot more natural to me than it did having that @ sit right on the baseline. You'll also want to baseline shift parentheses, hyphens, different things like that. Again, when you're using them in large type, when you're doing some kind of display text. Now the last slide that I showed you in that PowerPoint talked about setting or using little dingbats for your bullets. You can actually have a lot of fun with this, and you can see here I have these little trees set as the bullets for these words here. If I show you my hidden characters, you can see that I didn't just type this tree. It happens to be a font that's all trees. I didn't just type the letter that corresponds to this tree and then hit tab or hit a space or anything like that. This is an actual bullet that is assigned to my paragraph style. So I want to just go over how to do that really quick. To do that, though, I'm going to delete my bullet list paragraph style and my bullet character style. It requires both. So if I want to set that particular tree symbol as my bullet, I first want to create a character style that defines the size of my bullet. That's really the only thing I'm interested in. So I'm going to make it a 9-point, and then just for fun, just so that we can really see the difference, I'm going to make it red, but I'm going to make it just a 50% red, so it's not super bright. I'll hit OK, and then I'm going to come into my paragraph styles, and I'm going to create a new style, and I will call this one bullet as well. And then I'll jump down to my bullets and numbering section. The list type will be a bullet list rather than a numbered list. And then you can see I actually have it here already as I was going through before. But if I didn't have it, or if I wanted to pick a different tree, I could go to the Add button here, and I could select any font in my font book. So you can look around online for a lot of fonts that are fun to use that have different characters or different dingbats in them. I'll stick with that WM Trees font that I was using before, so I'll hit OK. And then, oops, sorry, let me go back to that. WM Trees, and then I need to select the actual tree character that I want from this little glyphs list of that particular font. So I'll just pick one of these, click Add, and I'll hit OK. Now I have my little tree there, so I can just select that, and what I'm telling InDesign here is that this is the bullet that I want to use. We're all familiar with just the little dot bullets here. Sometimes we see these little double arrows. Anything that's in this area is a character that you could use for your bullet. So I'm going to select this tree, and then I'm going to have it set a tab, and then my character style. So I'm going to choose the character style that I created called bullet, and then I will hit OK. Now I have my text highlighted here, so I'll just apply the bullet paragraph style, and there are my bullets. They're pretty far away from the text, so I'll come back into my bullet paragraph style, go back to bullets and numbering, and then I can adjust here the tab position. Remember that I have my text after a tab character. I could choose a different white space character, but we'll just stick with the tab, and we'll start kind of bumping this down a little bit so that it comes a little bit closer to the text. Oops, I went too far. So we'll do about a pica there. And then we'll hit OK. So that's pretty cool. You can have a lot of fun with that, and what's nice about this again is it's all dynamic, so you don't have to worry about any of this getting all messed up as you kind of change and develop your document. So that gives you a little bit of a crash course on punctuation. Again, I'll provide this cheat sheet for you so that you have it. You can reference it and kind of see what's going on there.